Hello, I am Kristina, Zachary, and welcome to the Home Sweet Home podcast, San Antonio Live. So we are located in San Antonio, and we are live right now coming at you. Of course, on the YouTube world, we're not live, but it doesn't matter. Thank you for watching our podcast and attending again. We have another wonderful guest. We are joined by Luis Rodriguez. He's with Presidio Advisory Group. So he's a tax expert. And of course, it's the peak of tax season, or we just passed the peak, but we just always want to keep you guys updated on what's going on in San Antonio, all the cool people here, and we are super excited to have Luis today. So, hi, Luis. How you doing?
Hi, Kristina. How are you?
Thank you so much for being here. I know you have a lot going on in your life, so we are blessed and honored to have you here today during your busy schedule.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
So, can you talk to the YouTube world a little bit? Tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started.
My name is Luis Rodriguez. I am a tax expert. My professional license is called an enrolled agent. I've been doing this for almost 20 years now, and love it. It's a crazy world, but love what I do. So.
No, we could definitely tell. So, Gabriel and I've been using you for I think about 3 years now, and I can make a true testament. We tried I think 2 or 3 accountants before you, did not have good experiences, and it was very frustrating. And when we finally found you, we're like, so happy and excited.
Thank you.
So, okay, let's kind of start from the very beginning. Did you grow up? Were you born here in San Antonio? Did you grow up here, or if not, what led you here to San Antonio?
Texas, born and raised, but not San Antonio, born and raised. I'm originally from a town southeast here called Goliad. Texas history is very important. But originally born and raised there, and I left when I was 18. Went to college my first year in Kingsville, and I started going for engineering, civil engineering actually, and decided that I wanted to make a move to San Antonio because had some friends of mine that were moving over here, and decided I wanted to follow them over. And when I made the switch, my grades weren't the best at the time. So basically, my first semester here at UTSA, I was on school, what they call school probation at the time, just to kind of get my grades back up, because otherwise they were going to kick me out. Yeah. But the good part about it is I was able to overcome that and spent the rest of my 3+ years here, and to graduate from UTSA, and proud alumni. Now we got a good football team, and love it, and it's been an interesting pathway. After graduation, I moved up to Austin, lived there for a couple of years. I was in the mortgage industry for I did mortgage refinancings and stuff like that for a couple of years. I loved it. Love numbers, love finance. Actually have my degree in general business and with a double minor in economics and finance.
Okay.
I don't even have an accounting degree, which is really funny. A lot of people laugh about that because they're like, but what so much? It's numbers are numbers. I mean, everyone's numbers are different, but we all love what we do. So long story short, moved here to moved back from Austin to met my wife. We got married. Moved from my hometown. Moved down to my hometown to live there for a couple of years, and then after that, we moved back to San Antonio to be closer to her family, give us more of an opportunity for financial growth, and also to be closer to her folks after we had our little one. So, it was one of those things to where we got closer to home, and this is, to me, San Antonio is home. I mean, I love my hometown, but I can definitely say I've been here, I'd say it's almost 20 years between college and after college. So, I mean, I could say it's pretty close. This is the hometown. So
nice. And what do you love about San Antonio? What do you guys do here?
Well, with my schedule, with my business, I don't do a whole lot, but growing up with my little one, going down to the zoo was one of the most fun things that we could do, except when it got 100 plus degrees on that asphalt. It gets a little warm. Definitely gets a little warm. But
even the animals don't enjoy it.
This is true. This is very true.
They don't like it either.
San Antonio was a lot of, has a lot of great places. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we're becoming more of a foodie town here.
Yes.
We definitely love our culinary arts stuff here. I've got a really good friend of mine, client of mine, who owns a couple of restaurants here in town. Is actually going to be down doing what is it called? This weekend they've got that thing down at Smoke Barbecue. Some sort of Elder Eats Texas.
Oh, okay.
Feast.
Yes.
Yeah, so he'll be down there. And so,
Very
long
cool.
story short, it's just there's a lot of things. I like to eat. My mother-in-law makes really good food. But there's a lot of artsy, craftsy things. Just a couple of weeks ago, my daughter's into anime and stuff, and so we went down to do the what is it called? They had some deal, not this past weekend or the weekend before. It was where you go down there and go check out the anime stuff, and it was hot. It was super hot but it was warm.
Worth it.
But it was worth it. I definitely get some good time with my wife, my daughter. So, anyway, but there's a lot of little things, but with it was the Comic-Con, actually. Thank you. And so, but yeah, there's a lot of little things that are out there that you can do. San Antonio has a great sports scene.
Mm-hmm.
We just finished up with the Spurs with the rookie, officially the rookie of the year, Victor Wembanyama. The great basketball player. I think he's going to be phenomenal for many years to come. There's a rumor coming around that supposedly we're going to get a baseball stadium downtown as well. So, from an economic standpoint, I think we're moving up in the world.
There's also rumors the Spurs are moving from the AT&T Center.
That is what I hear. But if they do move them from there, more than likely it'll be downtown at that location. Hopefully they do get that. And my personal opinion is I think that they need to do something like that because it would bring more of a downtown feel, downtown vibe to that downtown area, and it needs to definitely bring it up in that way. So,
I know we're always thinking about revamping, just
For sure.
revamp.
And it comes with the territory. With you guys being in real estate, I think everyone always needs to take a look. Always have a fresh coat of paint of looking at something new.
Absolutely.
Because you can always stick a what's the term? You can always stick lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. In some aspects,
yes.
And vice versa, the other way around. You can always have a diamond in the rough as well. So. A lot of people need to look at both ends of the spectrum. So
yeah. So you were in mortgage lending. How do you end up as an accountant? Where's that shift, and how does that shift happen?
Well, that shift happened for me when I was the tail end of the late, I would say the early 2000 refi boom. And a lot of professionals, such as myself at the time, were selling mortgages to people that really didn't need them. And, what they call, what happened in 2008 with the bubble bursting.
Yep.
So a lot of subprime mortgages out there. Mm-hmm. I was part of that group that was selling those subprime mortgages. I got out, and the reason why I got out is because I felt icky. I didn't feel
good about it.
I didn't feel good about it. So my last one before I quit was I sold a mortgage to a lady that was retired. She was in her 60s, getting Social Security and a pension. She wasn't making a whole lot of money. Basically sold her a $60,000 mortgage. And when she didn't need it, her house was paid for, free and clear. And so, my boss, I was right before the end of actually going to sell it to her officially and finish the paperwork. And I said, you know what? I really feel like this isn't the best situation for you. I had a clause, I had an ethical dilemma at that point. And, I hung up the phone and basically cut the call. And my boss, got mad at me. He was listening on the call, and he brought me into his office, yelled at me, did a lot of cursing at me. And I basically told him, F you and I'm gone.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it that way, but it's just your ethics gets to a point where you just don't feel like you need to do something like that, and that was what turned it for me. And I tried to go and do it some more, and did it for maybe another year. Went worked contract, and at that point, and was doing contract labor work. But I really wasn't selling a whole lot because I didn't have enough lead generation.
Yeah.
And so, long story short, after that last year was over, I mean, I ended up moving back home. And when I moved back home, there was a lady, when I was looking for work, there was a lady, the local CPA there in town, that was looking for help. And so she knew me. I didn't know her. She knew me through my family and stuff like that. And she said, I'm going to give you a shot. I said, okay. And basically, after it was probably about 4 weeks, 5 weeks, she called me into her office and closed the door. I was like, oh boy, I'm in trouble. I'm going to get fired again.
Yeah.
But she praised me. She said, you've got a knack for this. You've got a good brain. We don't get that kind of talent around here that often. And she said, would you consider actually going back and getting the rest of your hours for your accounting degree? And so she said, I'll pay for it.
Wow.
And so, the next 2.5 years, I went back and was working full time, going to school full time, and getting the remainder of my hours to sit for my CPA exam. And I got through there, ended up meeting my wife. We had a baby, and at that point, we really decided to really consider making a move because I really wasn't moving forward financially as fast as I'd want to. When I left my job and moved to San Antonio, I was making $13 an hour.
Okay.
5 years in as a professional.
Yeah.
As a professional, 5 years in, making a degreed accountant making $13 an hour. I'm like, come on, there's got to be a little bit more. But again, it was the location of where I was, small town, not making a lot of money.
Right.
So moved to San Antonio, and worked for 3 other firms locally here in town. Went to go take my exams. I failed them, unfortunately. It's disappointing.
It happens.
It does. But that also motivated me to see, is there other things that I can do with as a degreed accountant to become professional licensed. And I found this enrolled agent's license. And it, what a lot of people are confused, and I'm sure you're probably going to ask, but a lot of people get confused. What's the difference between a CPA and an enrolled agent? I just hit the mic. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
And basically the difference is, from a taxation perspective, exactly the same.
Okay.
Nothing different. I'm federally licensed. Federally licensed by the IRS to prepare tax returns and also to be your liaison between you and the IRS. That's my job. And a CPA is state licensed to basically do what they do. Unfortunately, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are federally licensed. And so I can take my place as far as my licensure across the country to do tax returns.
Nice.
Unfortunately, a CPA cannot.
Okay.
So I don't prepare financial statements. I don't do those. I don't review, audit financial statements. I choose. Those are called attestation engagements. Excuse me. I don't do those, and there's a reason why I don't. I did it as an employee for 10 years for other accountants, but there's a lot of work and a lot of red tape that goes through it, and that is the major difference from an accountant versus a CPA that I didn't want to do. So I knew I didn't want to go that route, so I didn't have to.
Nice.
So I do a lot of bookkeeping. I do a lot of payroll. I do, our office does a lot of that stuff. I do a lot of IRS audit work, a ton of tax work. And at the end, we do a lot of work with regards to the you know, a lot of tax planning. And that's kind of another thing we're going to wanted to get in topic on is what makes an accountant such as myself versus someone who does like TurboTax or something like that. The biggest thing is that I would say is why would someone need me to help them with their taxes? And one of those things is if you've got a side gig economy, that gig economy is growing leaps and bounds. Everyone is, working a W-2 job, but then a lot of folks are also doing side gig work. I'm going to do a side hustle. I'm going to go do Uber ride sharing, or I'm going to go maybe start out initially as a real estate agent.
Yeah.
I do have seen a lot of that over my career. And what ends up happening is those side gigs start making some good money. I've had a lot of teachers that have basically turned the corner from being a full-time teacher to quitting their teacher jobs and going full-time real estate. So those gig economies, they kick up, and those are my prime bread and butter. I do probably out of our firm handles about 2,500 projects a year. And of those 2,500 projects, I'd say probably a good 1,000 of them are business tax returns. And so of those 1,000 business tax returns, you got an individual that owns that business at some point. So, maybe it's one individual, maybe it's multiple individuals. But at the end, we do handle a lot of side gig. We also handle, basically a lot of work in that sense. So.
Nice. I was going to actually say, I know that being in the business for 20 years, you've seen a lot. You've experienced a lot. So I think just it comes natural with the territory of the whole solution oriented. Do you still find yourself coming into new things that you haven't seen before? Especially with the whole, like we said, the gig economy, or just the business side of things, just always transforming. Are you still learning new things, or do you still finding things keep repeating itself?
I'd say, at my level of my career, I mean, you'll never stop learning. You'll never, ever, ever stop learning.
Okay.
You don't want to. If anyone ever says, I know everything, they're lying.
Yeah.
But at the end, I would say I've hit a lot of stuff in my career. I've seen a lot of stuff in my career. I've also run through a lot of different obstacles in my career. But at the same time, there's always a solution somehow, some way. So to answer your question, yes, there are some things in my career that I haven't seen, especially over the last couple of years. The tax law changes every year. And unfortunately, and now there's the Trump tax cuts that got put in back in 2018, or I'm sorry, in 2017, 2018, that are going to be sunsetting here at the end of 2024, 2025. So there are some changes that are coming down the pipe that a lot of people don't realize that are coming down. But needless to say, there are things that I haven't seen that I have to go do research on. And that's one of the biggest things with our career, with what I do license-wise. I have to make sure that I can and will be able to say that I don't know everything. Yeah. Because if someone ever says that, they're lying. So go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so you were talking about how these new tax laws are coming into effect. I mean, we've been going to you for a while, so I'm unaware, but like H&R Block or TurboTax, right? Are they? Do you think they inform the consumer as well? Do you understand?
I don't think that they would. And granted, I can't speak on all of these folks, but I will say that based on my experience, that group of people aren't the best of informers of people that are trying to go with them. Based on my experience, mind you, I get a lot of those folks that do come over from H&R and or Turbo, that say, well, my person didn't tell me that. Yep. Unfortunately, and I hate to say it this way, but H&R and your Jackson Hewitts and stuff like that, they get a lot of individuals that only get about 4 to 6 weeks worth of training, and and
Wow.
then they put them out there to start working. So they
Oh.
don't really know the laws and the rules as well. But I do know some that have been there 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
and again, but they don't get in as well and enveloped and enthralled with the rules and regs as we do.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the software does a lot of what Turbo looks for. So the software is going to make the changes. So,
Yeah.
but the problem that you run into is it's supposed to be intuitive based on what you put into the questions. So
Mm.
if you're doing questions and you answer a question incorrectly because you interpret it one way versus this is what they're wanting, it's going to veer you off in a path that it's going to mess you up. Reviewed one just recently. It was probably about 6 weeks ago. That the lady, unfortunately, there was one deduction that she had in the return 3 separate times, and it was pretty significant. It was like I think 10,000 a piece, three
Jeez.
separate times. So it calculated it 3 times in her return to reduce her thing by 3 times, which it shouldn't have. And so unfortunately, I had to go back, and we're gonna have to go back and amend that, and it's gonna cost her a pretty penny. She got a pretty hefty refund,
Mm-hmm.
but unfortunately, because the way she does, as and I hate to say it this way, but she relied on the software to do the job as what a professional should do.
Yeah. So, I mean, just it's, would you say like accounting and the tax advisors, right? It's a very personal relationship. It's based off of not just like, oh, yep, got it. Thanks, good, great. No, what I really like about you is that you really take the time to sit down with us, get to know not just the numbers in our business, but get to know us. Or like, hey, well, what's your
What's the plan?
goals? What's the plan? Let's not talk about this year. Let's talk about the next few years so we can adjust. And you take the time to answer our questions. So I have another question, of course, with AI coming into play. I feel like a lot of people will ask like ChatGPT, right? How to do your taxes or strategies or planning. How do I do this, do that? Do you find that people are bringing that up in conversations within your industry?
I've had a couple of people already try to tell me that that they're going to be expecting that coming from Chat GPT.
Hmm.
But again, and it's all based on intuition of knowing the individual.
Hmm.
And I mean, 20 years worth of experience behind my belt, knowing what you and Gabe want, trying to figure out what you guys need for the future for what your plans and goals are. So and understanding the situation at the end of the day is going to be the most important piece, in my opinion, to figuring who you guys are, to
Yeah.
figuring out what y'all need, because I'm going to make sure that those conversations are had
Mm-hmm.
before, because we don't know what the future is going to hold
Mm-hmm.
on a year by year level.
Mm-hmm.
All we can do is plan for this is what we're going towards and make sure that we try and get there. So
Yeah, and I think another thing to keep in mind is people, a lot of the times they think, oh, I'll just write everything off. And then we have some clients that will come to us the next year and they'll be like, I'm ready to buy a house. I've been saving up. I'm ready to go. And then, of course, they have to turn the tax returns to the lender. And it shows that you didn't make that much money last year. So I think it really helps for people to know that you need to plan ahead and you need to talk to somebody who's educated,
right.
and not only just educated about the whole system and all those numbers, but educated on how to talk to people or educated on their clientele.
Because I know a lot of my clients well enough to say, okay, prime example, I also work with a lot of lenders too.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these lenders that I know that I work with, they're like, okay, we'll call it Jane Doe is want to buy a house in 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're going to do, have we filed this year's taxes yet? No, we're on extension. Okay, we got to make sure that we work with Jane Doe to get her enough income to show properly on her return,
Yeah.
to make sure she qualifies for this year's return and next year's return, to properly show that she has enough in income.
Yes.
So that is a huge benefit to working with a professional that understands the situation, understands what people are looking for, and most importantly, understands what the client needs.
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone's goal is to make sure they write off every single thing that they can do.
Mm.
This is true, but there's a way to write things off. Specifically, depreciation. Depreciation is one of those big, huge key factors that a lot of clients don't truly understand versus what lenders are looking for. When you depreciate an item, it's an add back for income for when you're trying to qualify for a home. And a lot of clients don't know that. So when when they want to tell me, "Oh, well, I'm just going to write, $15,000 worth of equipment off." Okay, let's take a look at that equipment. What is it? And they tell me, "Well, it's a $5,000, I don't know, laser printer, and $1,500 worth of printer and other things." And I'm like, "Okay, we can still write it off, but what we're going to do is we're going to move it from equipment, from supplies and tools and materials as a line item expense on the return, and moving it over to a depreciable line item. Still shows the same effect. You still get the bottom line. You don't pay as much taxes." But I know that it needs to be on this line, on the return, because it's going to be an add back for income tax or for qualification purposes.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I just got excited when you're talking about it. I'm like, because to the average consumer, like to Gabriel and I, or to average family, I think taxes sometimes can feel like such a stressful experience. So I think that's why a lot of people kind of have it, the easy way out, right? I'll just do TurboTax or just go here just to get it done with, because it's such a big thing to handle or to think about. They're like, I don't want to stress about it. So they're like,
But at the same time, if your goal is to do something for the future that's going to best set you up for qualifying for a house, or for
owning a business,
that's a prime example. A lot of people, and granted, TurboTax, I'm not saying that TurboTax doesn't serve a purpose. I really do think that it does serve a purpose, because 80% of the people that do, I'd say probably 70% of the people that use TurboTax, it works for what they're looking for, which is a person that has a W-2, a house, and a couple of kids on that, maybe husband, wife, W-2, house, and a couple of kids. It works. But for someone that has multiple businesses, maybe a rental property or a couple of rental properties, those are things that, a business or a few business, those are things that I'm like, all right, dude, seriously, we need to take a step back. Don't use Turbo. Don't even go to, and I hate to say it, don't go to the H&Rs, because they don't know. They're going to just try and give you everything that they can to make your refund be as max as it possibly can be, even though they may even screw it up and put it in the wrong place. I've seen that a lot. So just saying, everything serves its purpose. Every professional has a role in this world, whether it be selling houses, whether it be preparing tax returns. And that's another thing too. And this is a huge, big thing for me that scares me. There's a lot of quote unquote professionals that are doing tax returns that won't even, and if you want to have someone that has a red flag out there, that won't sign the bottom line on the second page of the return. They'll put it as self-prepared because they're going to do it through TurboTax. Unfortunately, that is a very, very, very big problem that we have in this world.
I wasn't even aware of that.
They do it. They'll go buy the software, right? They'll go buy the software for you. They'll bill you for it. They'll buy the software. They'll input everything into the return, but it says self-prepared at the bottom. And then when someone says, "Well, I paid my CPA to do it," I'll look at the second page. Did you now?
That's sleazy.
Oh, it happens all the time. That's a big thing.
I didn't even know that.
That's a huge deal. Ugh. And unfortunately, and then when you try to, if let's say that the person screws up the return and you get audited, that person's off the hook because
right.
The individual signed it as self-prepared.
Oh my gosh. And then that's kind of when they actually look for an actual accountant
to fix the problem.
Wow. Oh, that's jarring. I didn't even know that.
I would say out of the mistakes that I had to clean up, that's probably about 40% of them.
Wow. So what is the biggest piece of advice you could give to that average family, no matter where they go or what they do, if they want to, even if they don't have a plan for a business or a rental property or investments or anything like that, what's the best advice you have for them to optimize, like, on their tax strategy or planning? Or because I mean, of course, those families still want to plan vacations or something. They have goals in mind. What's the best advice you would give them?
The best advice I would give them is figuring out what they want to do. Do they truly live paycheck to paycheck, or do they, they've got multiple kids that are getting ready to go to college? Maybe they got 529s involved. Maybe they want to start saving for their own retirement, so they've got 401ks, SEP IRAs, regular IRAs, Roth versus traditional. You hear all these different words and different things, and people freak out when they hear that stuff because a lot of them, they don't know what it truly means. I would say at least have a conversation with a professional. And I would think that having a conversation, for example, having a 30-minute consult with me is free. And figuring out what you want to do is free. For that quick 30-minute conversation, it'll probably save a lot of time and headaches for the future.
Because at least it's like, hey, if you don't use me, at least you're now guided in a better direction than just kind of looking it up online and you're unsure as to, is this the right thing? Or because another website that said this and it's a little bit different. So,
I think the biggest thing that I would see is just having, let's talk theoretically, investments. When we deal with people that have investments, some people, they want to do investments from the perspective of, I'm going to go on to, I don't know, let's call it TD Ameritrade, and I'm going to trade stocks here and there, and I'm going to try and do day trading. Versus, is that a good idea versus someone that is going to buy and hold strategy? Those are more, those types of questions from a financial advisor perspective. I can't legally advise on that, but I can tell you based on my experience is you got to be careful what you're doing, because if you do go from a taxation perspective, if you do day trading, I've had this one guy come in and he bought and sold a ton of stuff day trading. It was over $4.5 million worth of income on paper.
Okay.
But he day traded the same, he had about 100,000, maybe less, maybe around 50K. He day traded this stuff every single day.
Wow.
He'd buy and sell, buy and sell, buy and sell, buy every day. All those transactions totaled out to be over $4 million worth of income. That wasn't taxable, but it was income. Unfortunately, when he prepared his tax return, he did not include the cost of that income. So he had a $400,000 tax bill at the end of the year. And he was freaking out. And he said, what did I do wrong? Oh, boom, there you go. That's it? Yeah, all you didn't add this piece to the return. Oh, you just saved me a headache because I didn't make any money. I said, I know you didn't. It shows that you didn't. But you didn't show the IRS that you didn't. Because when he submitted his stuff through TurboTax, when he submitted it, he forgot that piece altogether. Because it didn't make any money. So he thought, I didn't make any money, so I don't have to report it. The IRS got the $4.5 million worth of income. That's all they got.
Yeah.
And so we had to go back and tell the IRS, oh, by the way, here's the expenses that you didn't add, the cost. He's like, that's true.
So I'm about to get into, I do want to talk about you mentioned stocks, so I want to get to that next. But first, kind of what you were just describing, what is the most common mistake that you see people making when they do the taxes themselves? And how can they avoid that? And maybe if it's, of course, like, go to a professional, call me.
I will always say, go to a professional, call me.
Okay, but what is the most common and the biggest mistake you've seen in your career and the most common mistake you see? Both of those.
I would say the biggest mistake that I've seen in my career would have to be something to that degree of like the stock stuff. I mean, it was a big bill. I mean, it's $400,000+ that this person ended up owing. It was a lot of money.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he didn't own it. because he forgot this one line on the return.
Yeah.
But again, because he said that he didn't make any money. He thought that he didn't have to put that in the return. A lot of people they don't think that they should have to put that in. I agree, but they have to report the ins and the outs, and that's the piece that you're missing. So, a really common mistake that I see and deals with real estate. Two parts actually. Rental properties. A lot of people forget depreciation on rental properties because they just, TurboTax didn't ask me. I know they didn't. So, one of the biggest ones that I see, that I like to see, is when you're able to show that depreciation that was missed, and then when you add it on this year's return for them, and show them, oh, by the way, I'm able to add an additional $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 worth of depreciation expense on the books. They're like, oh my God, I owe less for this year. Can you fix last year? Oh yeah, I can just add that amended part in the return. Done. And basically save them another, $1,500, $2,500, $3,500 worth of tax.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. But that's one piece.
Uh-huh.
The other piece that I can tell you, and very, very, very common. People buy their sell their personal residence. When they sell their personal residence, especially if it's over $250,000, the IRS is required, the title company is required to send out what they call a 1099-S, as basically a sale. Even though it's a personal residence, still got to send it out. The IRS is going to get that document, and if you don't report that on the tax return and show that on the tax return, the IRS is going to freak out, and they're going to want money, because they say, oh, you didn't add this, you owe us some money. One of the biggest, most common mistakes is forgetting that little piece, and then adding the sale and the cost basis on the return. And this being in real estate, but a lot of people don't know the real rule, what they call the Section 121 exclusion. Section 121 exclusion is the 2 out of the last 5 year rule, and I know you know what that is. But the way that it works is, if you don't show it on the return, the IRS doesn't know it exists. Yeah. So if they don't see the 1099 or the income being shown on the return, they'll never know to exclude it either with using the 121 exclusion. So
interesting. Do you have social media?
We do have a presence. Not as, I'll be real honest, we because we have made a transition with our company this year. The previous owner that owned it prior to me, I bought it from her back in 2019. We kept her name on the door for a handful of years, and now that she's fully retired, I have changed the name back in January. It used to be Backlita and Rodriguez Companies. Miss Backlita has now since retired, and so now it was going to be just Rodriguez Companies. I'm like, that's kind of dumb. So
it's not personalized.
Exactly. And so we decided to change the name to Presidio Advisory Group. It's more of an homage to my hometown, which has the Presidio La Bahia, which is the only restored Spanish fort west of the Mississippi, and it's fully restored Spanish fort west of the Mississippi, and it is that's because it's beautiful, but also because that's where I got married. My wife and I got married. My parents got married. My grandparents got married. We've had 300 years. We've got 300 years worth of family that got married at that church. So it brings a little bit of a homage to that for that.
Yeah.
But again, that's why we changed the name. So to answer your question, yes, we do have social media, but it's being revamped, I guess is the word.
Might I make a suggestion?
Yes, ma'am.
You should create your own hashtag and make it well known, and you should be #TaxWizard.
I like that one. I initially, at one point, I had one going. I think it was a couple of years ago, prior to the previous election. I think it said, what did it say? Your hometown tax friendly accountant or something. I forgot what it was. But I like the tax
wizard. Tax wizard.
I'm about to use
Let's
that
get that going.
Hashtag tax wizard.
Gabriel and I will start it when we start posting both these videos.
There you go.
So going back to the stocks, like I said,
Mm-hmm.
I remember our last meeting, in-person meeting that we had with you, kind of going over our own tax returns and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. You mentioned something about stocks. So you want to start helping people with stocks. So you're wanting to kind of diversify what you help people with. Is that still a thing?
That still is a thing.
Okay.
I am working on getting my Series 65 license, and I want to become in addition to my tax side, I want to become a financial advisor. The financial advisor side is more, not necessarily the CFA part of it, but I mean there is basically what it is just basically you have the ability to become a registered financial advisor at that point. I think it's called an RIA is what the actual term is. So, and I think that is still a goal.
Okay.
It's still something that I'm working on. It's going to take a little time. My mentor that is helping, his name is Doug, really nice guy. But he understands that because I'm really busy and running my own practice. Also knows that it takes time.
Yeah.
It takes effort, and there's some tests that I do have to pass and take and pass and do all that stuff to continue. So
The usual stuff.
for sure.
So, I want to get into the accounting in a minute. Like, I have some questions there, and I don't want to forget them. But, I mean, since we're talking about the big, scary man of taxes, right? What are some dangers and about self-filing or audits, or what's a horror story that you've heard? Maybe not ones you've been connected with, but, like, talk about those dangers or where people find themselves in really bad situations because they filed wrong or an audit came in and all that stuff.
Well, one of the biggest things that I would say is there is always a solution. But to answer the ultimate question is, talking about the dangers, the IRS it was built for a reason. I mean, it's supposed to monitor us. It's supposed to keep an eye from the perspective of the monies that are coming in and the inflows that are coming into the government and the outflows that need to go back out to you guys, us as taxpayers, to make sure that the government runs on the amount of money that it's supposed to run on. Unfortunately, that number has been growing and growing, for many, many moons now. But we're not going to get in a political rant on at this point. So, but bottom line is, the IRS is a big bad boogeyman, but they are also very reasonable. I'll be very honest with you. A lot of people freak out when they start talking about the IRS. But most importantly, I will say is that I have seen, in my career, I probably have talked to 2, maybe 3 agents in my entire career that have been total jerks. But I mean, I've talked to hundreds that have been very helpful, very, very insightful. Unfortunately, I will say, over the last 5 years, the talent pool has been drained significantly because a lot of the older ones have retired or they've pushed them into retirement. What I think ended up happening is that they had the same amount of dollars to use, but they needed more talent. So what they did is they pushed a lot of the older ones out. They brought in a lot of newer talent, basically doubling the capacity, but unfortunately lessening the talent pool as far as the amount of brains that are out there. There still are a really good amount of folks that are out there, but at the end of the day, to answer the ultimate question is horror stories. Seen a few. I have one case that I'm working on right now, and particularly that the individual, it's a company. They owe pretty penny, probably $400, almost $500,000. They have a business, made a lot of money. They just didn't pay the amount of money in, and But here's the bottom line: is there's always a solution, and the solution is how can we make that number be where it needs to be, and is an accurate number first, and secondarily, if they do owe it, then trying to put together a plan of action to make sure that they can mitigate any potential potential pitfalls that are out there. If you don't pay your taxes, the IRS can put a lien on you. They can force you to basically take in and pay. They can garnish your wages. They can take away some of your benefits if you're on Social Security. They can take it out of your Social Security to pay it back. I've seen all of that stuff, but most importantly, I mean, if you work with them and try and get them what they are get what belongs to them, then it can be done. They can be worked out.
So try not to avoid it. Just
Correct. Just
bite the bullet.
Well, talk to a professional. Literally. I mean, all joking aside, talk to a professional and figure out exactly how to fix it.
Yeah. So. And now you were talking about that before we kind of started the podcast, you were mentioning that a lot of accountants are retired out or they not, of course that makes sense. You reach a certain age and you're like, I've been doing this for 40 years. I'm ready to go. But you have a lot of, I guess, like the real estate industry, right? Like a majority of the agents, like 85, 90% don't make it past the first 2 years. Right. So I mean, real estate's fun.
It is.
I know accounting is fun for you, but I know it's a way more stressful job and it has a lot of hours put behind it. Like you just said, during tax season, you work at least 80, 90, 100 hours a week. So I can see why a lot of accountants don't stay in the job. So how is that affecting your business today and other accountants that you talk to?
Especially in the local area, in the San Antonio area, I can tell you, I mean, this fact from the nation, from national statistics, there was 380 plus thousand people last year alone that retired from the accounting industry. That was over 10% of our entire workforce from the accounting and tax world have all just basically left. A lot of them were retirees that got to that point. They were ready, baby boomers, ready to get out.
Yeah.
A lot of them, there were a bunch of younger folks too, that don't want to put in the amount of hours. And I hate to say it that way, but they're not. I'm a Gen Xer, and so my Gen X background is we stick it out. We do what we got to do in order to do it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and I don't like saying it this way, but the generation behind us is. There are other things that they want to do, and they don't want to put in as much time and effort and work that we do. I'm not saying that about all of them, not at all, but I'm not trying to single out a generation.
You're just
either.
seeing a trend.
I'm seeing a trend, absolutely. And I'm also noticing that a lot of accountants that are in school, unfortunately, they're not going into the tax world. They're going into, I'm going to go work for private equity or VC work, or I'm going to go work for an investment firm. I'm going to go work for, I don't know, financial advisor side, just to stay away from the tax world because they know that this world is hard to do and they don't want to take the effort and the time to do it, unfortunately. So, yes, has it affected our industry? Absolutely. I mean, there are fewer and fewer of us and more of the taxpayer. More and more people that are doing 1 or 2 or 3 gig economy type jobs just to make ends meet, or because they find it fun. I mean, it's very easy to make that destination. So it can be there. It is there.
So could you say maybe a positive twist on it too could be, well, it's more work for y'all, and at least it kind of weeds the bad ones out. Does that make sense?
To a point.
Okay.
To a point, but unfortunately, and I'm seeing it every day. I mean, we're super busy all the time, and we don't have enough staff I have 9 people that work for me, that work with me and for me, and unfortunately. When we run through that side, it's hard, and so that's why I put in the number of hours that I do, because I know the work still's got to get out, and you guys as clients want the stuff done. So yes, it can be a blessing, but it also can be a curse as well.
Yeah,
so.
two sides of the sword
For sure.
So with you working 20 years in the business and working diligently and really hard at what you do and honing in on your craft, that's got to take a toll on stress or your personal life and marriage. How do you achieve that balance? And I'm sure it's taken trials and tribulations on the personal side as well.
It does. It does. I mean, I have been blessed enough to with my wife. I love her to death. She's the rock and soul of our family. The heart and soul. I can definitely say, when I have a bad day, she picks me up. When I'm having a great day, she knows how to keep that great
Make
day
it
going.
last.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't do this without her. I will tell you, and then literally and figuratively. Prior to me buying the business from the previous owner, I remember, we seriously discussed it of me opening up my own shop, and we discussed it hard. And she said, if this is your passion, this is what you need to do. I'm 100% behind you.
Yeah.
So I mean, we talked about it before, and when we made that conscientious effort to do it, we did it. But I will say, I mean, it's not been easy. I mean, being a business owner, you guys know it. It's hard work. Over when I bought the company, she came on board with me, and so her and I worked together. She is with me. She's a pediatric physical therapist by trade. She's done it for a long time. She still does it today, but she's down to 2 days a week now versus and working 3+ days. I mean, she works 40+ hours a week anyway.
Nice balance.
And so, but at the same time, she works 40+ hours with me and still does her 15 to 20 hours a week with her other company. So she still works a lot too.
Yeah,
so,
very cool.
But ultimately, the work-life balance of it, I mean, we try to do as much as we can during the normal business hours. Once we get home, we shut it off.
Don't talk about work.
We try not to talk about work. We try
can
to shut
always
it off.
handle it tomorrow.
Correct.
The next day.
Correct. And outside of tax season, I mean, we do try, like right now. We're still catching up. I back off. I come home. I try to be home. Leave the office by 6. That's my goal. By 6 every day. And on Fridays, regardless if it's during tax season or not, I try to leave the house by 5. Because Friday nights are my family. We sit we sit and we watch stupid movies, and we have our Friday night dinner. That's our thing. And then we'll watch a Disney movie. We'll watch, of course, when my little one was young, we'll watch Disney princess movies and all that other stuff. But it was fun. And now we're watching. We're bringing my daughter into the world of the old stupid slapstick, 80s comic old dumb movies.
Yeah.
And she's like, Dad, this is dumb. I said, no, but your mom and I are laughing our butts off.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
she's like, but this is. I said, shh.
You know what movie you should do if you haven't done it yet? Rat Race.
I haven't seen that one.
We showed our son, our oldest, and he was dying. It's such a good time when you have to watch this classic. So
for sure.
Now, tell us, because we don't want to be all negative, right? Tell us a really happy story or a rewarding client experience that you've had. You're like, oh, this is great. This is why I do what I do.
Some of the best ones. I mean, it happens every year. When you're working with someone that brand new, out of the box, gig economy, or just went off on their own for the first time, and when you're able to help save them money on their taxes, significant amounts of money on their taxes, and being able to show that, hey, they're making, you're doing it, and or seeing them from infancy of their business to where they are today. I have one particular client. I mean, it's so rewarding. I mean, just being able to see the growth. This guy started with his business with I think $1,000, and now he is, I would say on an average year, he'll bring in $1.25 million a year.
Nice.
And so, I mean,
congratulations to him.
that's the kind, and that for me, that's rewarding because I see I like to see people grow. I like to see people. I will say rewarding. There's more success stories than not,
Yeah.
and that to me is the cool part about what I do. And I love it. I love seeing people succeed. I love. There's an old saying. My dad used to tell me. There's an old saying in Spanish where, you would. There's a barrel of crabs, and in the barrel, you got the crabs that you open the barrel and the crabs are trying to get out, and the other ones are pulling them back
Pulling them
in.
down.
For me, it's the other way around. I like to see the crabs pushing the other ones out, and that to me is one of the best things that I could say that I love to see is we have more success stories than not.
Yeah.
And people say, well, success stories are a dime a dozen. Or I'm sorry, that are rare. No, they're not. If you want them, if you look at everyone's success stories being different, if you're trying to compare it to yourself, it's hard.
Yeah.
But everyone's success story is different. Getting past year 1 is a success. Getting past year two is a success.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been doing this on my own officially since 2014. So, it's been a couple of years. I mean, 10 years officially on my own, 20 years in the business altogether. So
Wow.
it's hard. But when I bought the company from the previous owner, little did I know that 6 months later it was going to be COVID. So
Yeah.
there was about I would say about a 2-week period where I didn't know if I was going to shut the doors or not.
Wow.
I remember it was some September of 2020. And I just remember, that first week, and I'm like, my wife and I were looking at the numbers and looking at the money that was in, looking at our payroll. We're like, what the hell we're going to do? And she said, let's cut people. So we had a mass layoff. We had, at the time, we had 13 people. I think we went down to 6 at that point, 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And it was hard.
A difficult choice.
I mean, it was hard to do because I love these people. These people are my people.
Yeah.
I have a hard time with that. But again, my wife was able to really kind of guide me through it. So.
Yeah. Well, I love it. Well, we're almost getting out of time. So, what advice do you have for aspiring future accountants? What advice would you have for them to prepare them for this and to have them stick through it?
First piece of advice that I would say is nothing is harder than doing it on your own. Start off, I would guarantee, work for a small company, work for a mom and pop, work for somebody that you've got exposure to many different things. Because you don't, and I hate to say it this way, yeah, you can go work for your big four, your E&Y, your your Price Waterhouse Coopers, so on and so forth, and they can pay you a ton of money, but they're going to treat you like a cog in the wheel, and if you can't keep up, they'll kick you out. Unfortunately, they're going to work you to death. But if you work for a mom and pop place, they're going to try and watch your back. They're going to take care of you. They're going to do a lot of things that, I mean, I hate to say it, but they're going to expose you to a lot of good things that are going to help you for your career for the future.
Yeah.
So that would be thing number one that I would say for a lot of the future accountants who want to go out there. Work for a small mom and pop place and give it a shot. Don't get frustrated. Don't
discredit it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't dog it till you try it.
And a lot, and I hate to say it, but a lot of folks get really upset with, so and so is making X number of amount per year. Working for one of the big four. Yeah, but so and so is going to be out in 2 years and she's going to go work for a bank in 2 years because she can't hack working in the tax industry.
Sure.
So
she's burnt out too.
She'll get burnt. Exactly. So I said, prime example, work for somebody who's small that gives that opportunity to do it right.
And get that experience too.
Exactly.
For people who have a little bit more patience.
Sure. During COVID, it was really hard because a lot of people were, closing shop. It was difficult.
So much uncertainty.
Yeah, extremely. But there were a lot of government programs that were out there. I took advantage of it. I was able to because I had payroll. I was able to take what they call the PPP program and help me survive. Now, that program that doesn't exist anymore, but there are there are other state and local programs that are out there. You just have to try and find them. Being local here in San Antonio, there are a lot of things, through Bexar County, through the city of San Antonio, that are out there that if you're looking for grants to help start your business, to help keep your business afloat, there are things out there. I don't have anything in particular or specific, but I know there are programs out there.
Yeah, and it helps talking to a professional because
absolutely,
TurboTax ain't gonna do that for you. You can be
this is true.
Hey, So it really helps to just be a solution-oriented professional, no matter what industry you're in.
Correct.
But especially for
small
businesses, or just anything with tax. And
absolutely.
It's just there's so many unknowns out there and uncertainties that if they go to a professional like yourself, it could really just be like a light switch, be absolutely
Correct.
beneficial.
Correct.
My husband wants to ask a question. Advice for people who want to, do you have advice for people who want to invest in real estate?
Main piece of advice that I would say is, don't be afraid to take a risk. There's always going to be risk involved with anything that you do. But at the end, the risk reward factor on real estate, especially here in San Antonio, is a lot higher than in other locations.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. I would say, granted, because we're so stable economy-wise here, we're so stable from the perspective of the real estate side. I mean, our rates, our real estate rates haven't moved up and down like in Chicago or in New York or in your other location, California.
Yeah.
I mean, Las Vegas. I mean, those markets go ups and down like crazy. Here we've got little peaks and valleys, but nothing to the degree that they do. So
yeah.
I would say talk to professionals such as yourselves to try and figure out exactly, if someone wants to put some money into buying a piece of property or buying a house or buying a multifamily or duplex, quadplex, eightplex. I will say, the one thing I will say, cap rates, got to look at your cap rates on all your pieces that you're looking for. Cost segregation analysis is another thing that you want to look at when it comes to real estate investing, especially if it's multifamily. The multiple doors that your cost seg is going to help you tremendously. And, having the ability to have those conversations of talking to the professional is from the perspective of, I want to buy this, how much money do you think you can get for it? How much do I need to put in? What do I need to get in order to do it? So
absolutely. Okay. Well, I have a surprise for you.
Oh.
I do this at the end with every guest. But before I give you the surprise, you got to do one thing for me.
Okay.
You have to come up with a question for me to ask the next podcaster.
Okay.
And then I'll tell you the question that we had from the last podcaster.
All right.
And, honestly, he knew that you were an accountant, so he asked a tax-based question. But you don't know the next guest, so you have to ask
Well, what does the next person do?
I can't tell you that.
That's not nice. All right.
Honestly, we're still planning it, so
okay.
We don't really know.
Okay. Ask this person.
Okay.
An embarrassing story.
Oh, okay.
From high school.
Nice. I like it. It's fun.
It's a fun embarrassing story from high school.
Okay.
That's what I will say.
All right.
Just one.
Just one.
One.
We all
or
multiples, don't we?
or we can even say college, just in case if this person didn't have one in high school.
Okay.
But
all right. Perfect. Great. Okay. So, thank you for that. Now, the question that was asked from the podcaster we had, he's actually a top agent in San Antonio.
Okay.
And baby, you might have to help me with the question a little bit. But he was asking specifically kind of for real estate professionals, is there something that we can do, or what do you recommend, if I'm Gabriel, please correct me again, like if I'm wrong. But is there anything that real estate professionals can do when opening up their own business? Should they do which route should they go? Because I think some people hear LLC, they hear S corp, C corp, they hear all of this jargon. What would you recommend for a real estate agent? Is that the question? Oh, hold on. You might remember it better than me.
What's the best form of?
What's the best form of a company or entity for a real estate professional?
Okay. I would
Semantics
say,
at this point, babe. I said the same thing.
I would say, from a tax perspective,
Okay.
I would say it would all depend on what you anticipate your revenue to be. It's all revenue generated. And if you're out there making a ton of money,
Yeah.
when I say a ton of money, I mean, let's call it millions and millions of dollars.
Okay.
Then it might be, and when I say ton of money, I'm talking your net profit, not your gross, your top line. I'm talking your bottom line.
Yeah.
Then a C corporation might be the proper strategic move to what you're looking for this company. Because a C corporation is taxed at a flat rate, 21% flat. So it doesn't move.
Yeah.
So, and then you can draw a salary out of that C corp, and whether it be $100,000, $50,000, $2 million, doesn't matter. You can determine what your salary is as long as it's you're paying yourself as an owner. There is the double taxation aspect of it, but that's a whole other conversation. We can go down that rabbit hole later. I would say the most common structure would be a single member LLC, and then converting, and that for your state purposes, limited liability company state purposes, and then converting that into an S corporation for tax purposes, for federal tax purposes. That's typically the most common that I see.
Okay.
And I say that because I know that there's a lot of advantages of doing it that way. Number one advantage, most important piece is, you have the ability of having the S corporation. I'm sorry, the LLC from a state legal liability protection side of it. Granted, I'm not an attorney, so I can't legally tell you the stuff on that side of it, but I know it does make a big difference from a legal protection side. S corporation for federal income tax purposes, because once you make that transition, then you're paying income taxes as a passive entity, which helps your overall income, and reducing your what they call your self-employment liability aspect of it. So you don't have to pay as much or any self-employment tax on that side. So basically, that's usually your best case scenario. And then as the company grows, do you want to do that initially? Probably not. Right off the bat, making the switch over to an S corporation, unless you're making a pretty decent amount of money. When I say decent, let's call it net profit. Let's call it 20,000, making that transition. And the reason being is because once you make that transition, then we have to also start looking at, okay, what happens if you're not making enough? Because one of the biggest things of becoming an S corporation is having to quote unquote pay yourself a salary.
Yeah.
A lot of folks, they freak out about that term. Well, what happens if I don't make enough money to pay myself a salary as an S corporation? I understand that, and that is a key legal point from a taxation perspective, from the IRS perspective, to make that conversation. But you also have to look at it: is there enough income to sustain what they call that salary? And that reasonable compensation is the word from the IRS.
Yeah.
Is it truly enough income to reasonably pay that individual? So that's something that we have to look at as well. So that's the most common piece that I would say that I've seen.
Okay. Great advice. Thank you. I'm so excited.
Ta-da.
So we get to the final end of this. Thank you so much. So I love art. I love doing all things creative. So I've done some pieces in here. So
I've seen some of the stuff. That looks
we
nice,
do. Gabriel and I came up with the idea that every podcast guest should get a canvas. So I've done one for you and your family.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome. So I do it out of crayons, wax art.
Oh my goodness.
Hold on, I don't want to break anything because I knocked over the picture earlier.
Oh wow.
So here you go.
That is nice.
Thank you.
Look at this. This is cool.
Thank you. So
Wow.
do whatever you'd like with it.
This is going to go up in the office.
Oh, really?
Yes, I will take this into the office.
So next time I see you, I'm going to be like, where's my painting, Louise?
That's right.
Where is it?
This is really cool. Thank you so much. I appreciate that very, very much.
Perfect.
I like it. I like it a lot. I'm a huge art person too. I didn't do band in high school and junior high. I was an artist. I did art, and never got into paint. I was always a
that's
pencil
not paint. That's wax. That's crayons.
Wax crayons. Excuse me. But that is gorgeous. I mean, it's beautiful.
Oh,
actually.
thank you. Wait, how do you say crayons?
Crayons.
Crayons. It's crayons.
Say that again.
Crayons.
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 What the heck is a crayon?
It's crayon. It's.
Gabe, am I wrong? I mean, it's a crayon, right?
It's a crayon.
Crayon.
We're saying the same thing. It's a crayon. In the debates below, how do you say crayon? The proper way, do you say crayon? That's it doesn't sound right.
But crayon doesn't sound. Anyway, we could go on this all day. That's when we need to get the alcohol involved.
Yeah, that's not what the podcast is about. Well, thank you so much Louise for being here. We truly appreciate it. Gabriel and I appreciate your business.
Thank you.
And what you've done for us throughout the years. And as we continue to grow, we'll continue to grow with you. We always, anytime anybody needs an accountant, we're like, send them your way.
Yeah.
So we truly appreciate it.
For sure.
But in the meantime, one more time, kind of tell everybody how they can reach you if they have any questions, and talk to the YouTube world. So there you go.
Well, thank you again, guys. We appreciate it. Again, my name is Luis Rodriguez with Presidio Advisory Group, CEO, owner, enrolled agent. My phone number is 210-681-8283. Best email contact is luis.r@band, like rock band, BANDRCO.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Luis. And all of his information is going to be below as well. So if you didn't catch that and write it down, you can look below. I'll have my husband put that, and our video editor put it somewhere here too. And thank you guys so much for watching. This is the Home Sweet Home podcast. I'm Kristina Zachary with the Zachary team, brokered by Phyllis Brown & Company. As you guys know, Gabriel and I are San Antonio's realtor couple. So if you are looking to buy, sell, or invest here in San Antonio, we'd love to help you out. And you can reach us at 210-504-5301. And we look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. So thank you so much, and we will see you later. Bye.
Bye.